The massive ship hung in Earth's orbit like a silver teardrop, its smooth surface reflecting the blue glow of the planet below. Inside the vessel's main observation deck, Ambassador Gray stood with their four-fingered hands clasped behind their back, large eyes fixed on the world that had fascinated their people for so long. "Ambassador, the final reports are ready for your review," said First Officer Blue, approaching with a datapad. The officer's skin shimmed with a nervous purple tint, a clear sign of excitement that their species couldn't easily hide. Gray took the pad without shifting their gaze from Earth. For 50 years, they had studied this planet and its inhabitants through intercepted broadcasts, radio signals, and long-range observations. The Galactic Council had been cautious, wanting to make absolutely sure that humans were ready for first contact. Now, after all that waiting, the moment had finally arrived. "Have you reviewed the latest cultural analysis?" Gray asked, finally turning to face their officer. The datapad displayed hundreds of hours of human broadcasts, carefully analyzed by their best experts in alien behavior. "Yes, Ambassador. The humans appear to be relatively peaceful, though they show some concerning traits. They are quite fond of their entertainment broadcasts showing conflict, but our analysts believe this is merely a way to release aggressive tendencies safely." Gray nodded, their large head bobbing gently. The humans were indeed a puzzle. Their broadcasts showed both great kindness and terrible violence, profound wisdom and silly entertainment. But the Galactic Council had decided they were ready, and Gray had been chosen to make this historic first contact. "Send the signal," Gray commanded, straightening their ceremonial robe. "Let's announce our presence." The response came faster than anyone expected. Within minutes of broadcasting their arrival message, the humans had replied with their own transmission. The ship's communication officers worked quickly to process it through their universal translators. "Ambassador," Blue called out, their skin now shifting to an excited orange. "The humans have sent us coordinates for their United Earth Council building. They're inviting us to land immediately." Gray felt their own skin ripple with surprise. This was unexpected. Most species needed days or even weeks to process the shock of first contact. But humans, it seemed, were eager to begin dialogue right away. "Perhaps we should take more time to," Blue began, but Gray raised a hand to silence them. "No, if they are ready to meet us, we should not keep them waiting. Prepare the landing shuttle." Gray turned to address the gathered crew members. "Remember your training. We represent not just our world, but the entire Galactic Council. The humans must see us as friends, as beings they can trust and work with." The landing shuttle detached from the main ship 30 minutes later, carrying Gray, Blue, and 3 other crew members chosen for their expertise in diplomacy and in xenobiology. As they descended through Earth's atmosphere, Gray studied the approaching city below. The humans had cleared a large area for their landing, and Gray could see crowds gathered at a safe distance, held back by what appeared to be security forces. "Their technology is more advanced than our last survey indicated," Blue noted, pointing to the sleek buildings and vehicles visible below. "They've progressed rapidly in the past decade." The shuttle touched down with perfect precision on the landing pad. Through the vessel's windows, Gray could see a small group of humans approaching. They wore formal attire, and most importantly, they were smiling. A gesture that their cultural experts had assured them was friendly, despite the unsettling display of teeth. "Remember," Gray told their team as they prepared to exit, "we've studied their customs extensively. Nothing they do should surprise us. We are ready for this moment." The shuttle's door opened with a soft hiss, letting in Earth's air for the first time. Gray led their team down the ramp, their ceremonial robes shimmering in Earth's sunlight. The human delegation waited at the bottom, still wearing those tooth-baring expressions of welcome. At that moment, neither Gray nor any member of their crew could have possibly guessed that in less than 24 hours, they would be fleeing Earth in blind panic, all because of a simple dinner invitation. The meeting room in the United Earth Council building buzzed with excitement. Director Smith sat at one end of the long table, watching with interest as Ambassador Gray and their team examined the holographic display of Earth's solar system. The aliens moved with careful grace, their silvery skin catching the light from the presentation. "Your progress in clean energy is impressive," Gray said, gesturing at the solar collectors orbiting Earth. "We noticed the reduction in atmospheric pollutants over the last decade." Smith beamed with pride. The first 2 hours of their meeting had gone perfectly. The aliens seemed friendly, and their universal translators made communication easy. "We learned from our mistakes," he said. "Now we're looking forward to learning from the Galactic Council as well." Blue, standing near the window, made notes on their datapad. Their skin rippled with a light blue shade that the human scientists in the room found fascinating. The other alien diplomats spread around the room, examining everything with their large, curious eyes. "We have much to share," Gray replied. "Your species has shown remarkable adaptability. We've studied your broadcasts for years, though some aspects of human culture still puzzle us." Smith leaned forward, genuinely curious. "Oh, like what?" "Your entertainment broadcasts often contradict each other. In one, humans appear peaceful and cooperative. In another, they engage in something called action movies with much destruction. It made classification of your species challenging." A laugh went around the room, easing any remaining tension. Smith stood up, straightening his jacket. "Well, Ambassador Gray, I think the best way to understand humans is to spend time with us. Would you and your team do us the honor of joining us for dinner tonight?" The word dinner rippled through the universal translators. Gray's skin flickered briefly with a shade of green, but they maintained their diplomatic composure. Blue, however, nearly dropped their datapad. "Dinner?" Blue asked, their voice unusually high. They quickly tapped something into their device. "Yes, a formal diplomatic dinner," Smith continued, not noticing the aliens' subtle reactions. "We've prepared our finest meeting hall. Our best chefs have been working all day to create a feast worthy of this historic occasion." The alien diplomats exchanged quick glances. Their translators were processing Smith's words, connecting them to their database of human broadcasts. Images flashed through their minds. Nature documentaries showing predators at dinner, old movies where villains invited heroes to dinner before trying to kill them, cooking shows with their terrifying displays of knives and fire. "Your chefs," Gray said carefully, "they have been preparing all day." "Oh yes," Smith said enthusiastically. "They're preparing quite a spread. We want to show you the very best of Earth cuisine." Blue's skin had taken on a distinctly grayish tinge. They quickly showed something on their datapad to Gray. The ambassador's large eyes widened slightly, but they maintained their professional demeanor. "That is most kind," Gray replied. "We would be honored." Smith clapped his hands together, making several of the alien diplomats jump. "Excellent. We'll send a transport for you at 7. We'll have everything ready, tables set, wine poured, and the main course hot and waiting." As Smith turned to discuss arrangements with his staff, the alien delegation huddled together, speaking in hushed tones. Their universal translators were working overtime, processing terms like main course, wine, and set the table against their database of human culture. "They're going to set something," Blue whispered, "and there will be wine. The liquid humans drink to make their feasts more enjoyable." Gray tried to remain calm, but even their diplomatic training was being tested. They had studied Earth's predator creatures, had seen how they too enjoyed their prey more with proper preparation. And now, these humans were talking about preparing something for them. "Perhaps," Gray whispered back, "this is simply another cultural misunderstanding." Then Smith turned back to them, smiling broadly and showing all of his teeth that the aliens suddenly realized were designed for tearing meat. "I hope you're all hungry," he said cheerfully. "Our chefs are really going to treat you tonight." The word hungry made all their translators buzz at once. Blue's skin went almost white. Gray managed a weak nod, while mentally calculating how quickly they could reach their shuttle if needed. As the meeting wrapped up, the alien delegation left the council building with perfect diplomatic politeness. But anyone watching closely might have noticed they walked just a little more quickly than necessary, huddled a bit closer together, and kept glancing back at the smiling humans, as if expecting them to pounce at any moment. Back aboard their shuttle, the alien delegation gathered around the main computer display. Blue's fingers moved quickly over the control panel, pulling up file after file from their cultural database. The small craft hummed softly as it hovered in low Earth orbit, maintaining a safe distance from the surface. "Look at this," Blue said, their skin still showing patches of worried gray. "Humans classify themselves as omnivores. They eat both plants and," they paused dramatically, "other living things." Gray watched the screen as it displayed clips from human cooking shows. Their large eyes widened as they saw humans wielding sharp metal tools, cutting things into pieces with practiced efficiency. "Perhaps they only eat non-intelligent life forms," they suggested, but their voice lacked conviction. "Ambassador, there's more." Another diplomat, Red, stepped forward with their own datapad. "We found these common human phrases. Listen. You look good enough to eat. I'm having some friends for dinner." Working up an appetite. Red's skin flickered with nervous patterns. These are common sayings among humans. The shuttle's computer continued displaying more footage. Humans in white outfits, which they now suspected might be some kind of ceremonial hunting guard, using flames to transform their food, wielding metal tools that the translator labeled as knives and forks, and gathering in special rooms dedicated to what they called dining. "And they use heat," Blue added, pulling up more images. "They actually apply fire to their food. They call it cooking and consider it a crucial part of their culture. Look at these barbecues. They gather in groups to watch food burn." Gray paced the shuttle's cabin, their ceremonial robes swishing softly. The evidence was becoming harder to ignore. Did anyone notice how their leader, Smith, kept showing his teeth? Our cultural experts said it was a friendly gesture, but now... Yes, Red jumped in. "And did you see their meeting room? Those chairs, those tables, they're just like their dining rooms. They were testing us, seeing how we would react to their feeding furniture." A junior diplomat called Yellow spoke up from the corner. "I've been reviewing our historical records. No other known species in the Galactic Council prepares their food with heat and sharp tools. None of them have special rooms just for eating, and none of them invite other species to join them for their feeding rituals within hours of first contact." The computer chimed, indicating a new message from Earth. Everyone in the shuttle tensed. Blue reluctantly opened the communication. "They've sent us information about tonight's event," Blue said, their voice shaking slightly. "They call it a formal dinner. Look at these images of their dining hall." The screen filled with pictures of a large room. Long tables stretched from end to end, each set with rows of sharp metal implements. Flames burned in decorative holders along the walls. The universal translator highlighted various concerning items: carving knives, serving platters, cutting boards. "Ambassador," Red said quietly, "what if we're not going to a dinner? What if we're going to be dinner?" A heavy silence fell over the shuttle. Gray stared at the images, their diplomatic training warring with their growing concern. That can't be right. The humans have achieved spaceflight. They've cleaned their atmosphere. They've shown signs of advanced civilization. But look at their teeth, Yellow exclaimed. They're flat in the front but sharp on the sides, perfect for tearing flesh. And their eyes, set in the front of their heads like all predator species. The computer chimed again. Another message from Earth. "Looking forward to having you for dinner. Hope you bring your appetite." Blue's skin went almost completely white. Having us for dinner. Not having dinner with us. Having us for dinner. Gray moved to the shuttle's window, looking down at Earth. The planet looked peaceful from up here, its swirling clouds hiding any hint of the potentially carnivorous civilization below. Their people had studied humans for so long, but had they completely misunderstood their true nature? "We can't refuse without causing a diplomatic incident," Gray said finally. "The Galactic Council would want us to be certain before making any accusations." They turned to face their terrified crew. "We'll attend this dinner, but we'll be prepared. Keep your emergency transporters ready. And whatever you do, don't let them separate us." The crew nodded nervously as Earth turned slowly below them, counting the hours until their dreaded dinner engagement. None of them noticed that their universal translators had a small warning light blinking, indicating possible cultural context errors in their database. The human transport vehicle glided smoothly through the evening air, carrying the nervous alien delegation toward their destination. Ambassador Gray sat stiffly, trying to project calm despite their skin occasionally flickering with worried colors. The other diplomats huddled close together, their large eyes darting around the vehicle's interior. "Remember," Gray whispered, "stay alert but diplomatic. We must be certain before taking any action." They adjusted their ceremonial robe, beneath which they'd hidden their emergency transport device. The vehicle descended toward a large building lit up against the darkening sky. Through the windows, they could see humans moving about, carrying things, and making what their hosts had called preparations. "Look," Blue hissed, pointing at a human walking past with a large, shining metal object. "They're not even trying to hide their cutting tools anymore." The transport landed, and a human guide stepped forward to greet them. "Welcome. Please follow me to the preparation room. You can freshen up before dinner." The aliens exchanged worried glances. "Preparation room," Yellow whispered, their skin turning a sickly pale shade. "Are they going to prepare us?" The guide led them through wide hallways, past rooms where they could smell strange aromas and hear the sound of flames and metal implements. One door was open, revealing humans in white clothes moving quickly around what appeared to be a room dedicated to food preparation. The aliens watched in horror as one human skillfully wielded a large knife, reducing something into small pieces with practiced efficiency. "Those white outfits," Red whispered to Gray, "just like in the videos. They must be their hunting gear." The preparation room turned out to be a large space with mirrors and washing facilities. The guide smiled, showing those omnivorous teeth. "Take your time. We'll send someone to escort you to the main dining hall in 15 minutes." Once alone, the delegation huddled together in panic. "Did you see all those rooms we passed?" Blue asked, trembling. Each one had humans preparing something. The scale of this operation. They must do this regularly. "And the smells," Yellow added. "All those strange aromas. Are they marinades?" The universal translator had helpfully provided that term, along with its definition. A sauce in which meat is soaked before cooking. Gray moved to the window, looking for possible escape routes. The sun had set, and the building was now lit up with what seemed to be ceremonial flames. Below, more humans were arriving, all dressed in formal attire. "They're gathering in large numbers," they reported grimly. A knock at the door made them all jump. A different human entered, wearing what appeared to be serving clothes. Would anyone like an appetizer before dinner? The word appetizer caused all their translators to buzz simultaneously. The definition appeared in their minds. A small dish served before the main meal to increase hunger. "They want to make us hungry," Red whispered in horror after the server left. "They're trying to enhance their meal's flavor." Gray was about to respond when they heard a sound that made their skin turn almost transparent with fear. The sharp sound of metal being scraped against metal, coming from somewhere nearby. Their universal translators quickly provided context. The sound of knives being sharpened. "Ambassador," Blue said, their voice shaking, "I know we're supposed to maintain diplomatic relations, but, they couldn't even finish the sentence." Before Gray could respond, the door opened again. Their guide had returned, still wearing that tooth-baring expression. "Everyone ready. The dining hall is prepared, and all the other guests are seated. We've got you at the head table, the place of honor." The aliens followed, walking close together, their emergency transporters clutched tightly under their robes. As they approached the main hall, they could hear the sounds of many humans gathered together, the clinking of metal implements, and what their translators identified as dinner music. The guide reached for the large doors, ready to open them. "I hope you're all hungry," they said cheerfully. "Our chef has really outdone himself tonight." Gray felt their skin ripple with fear as they imagined what sort of creature this chef must be to have outdone himself in preparing what was starting to seem less like a dinner and more like a carefully planned feast, with them as the main course. The massive doors swung open, revealing a scene that made the alien delegation freeze in terror. The grand hall stretched before them, filled with dozens of tables covered in white cloth. Flames flickered from tall holders placed around the room, casting dancing shadows on the walls. At each place setting, multiple metal implements gleamed under the light. Ambassador Gray felt Blue grip their arm tightly. "Ambassador," Blue whispered, "every seat has at least 4 different cutting tools." Their translator was frantically labeling each item. Fork for stabbing, knife for slicing, spoon for scooping, and various other implements whose purposes they didn't want to imagine. Director Smith approached them, spreading his arms wide in welcome. His teeth showed prominently in what the aliens now saw as a predatory display. "Ambassador Gray, we've saved the best seats for you and your team, right here at the main table." The aliens were led to their seats, each one finding themselves surrounded by smiling humans on all sides. Gray noticed with growing horror that humans in white uniforms were moving efficiently around the edges of the room, carrying covered platters and speaking in hushed tones. "Those must be the hunters," Red whispered from across the table. "See how they move. So practiced, so coordinated." A human in white approached their table with a bottle. "Would anyone like some wine to start?" they asked pleasantly. Gray remembered their research. Humans often used wine in their ceremonies, and it supposedly made the consumption of food more enjoyable. Were they trying to enhance the flavor of their intended meal? The ambassador politely declined, noticing that none of their team dared accept either. Smith stood up, tapping his glass with one of the metal implements. The sharp sound made several aliens jump. "Before we begin our feast," he announced to the room, "I'd like to propose a toast to our honored guests." All around the room, humans raised their glasses, their eyes fixed on the alien delegation. Gray felt their skin ripple with fear. They were the center of attention, surrounded with humans watching their every move. "And now," Smith continued cheerfully, "I'm excited to announce that our chef has prepared something very special. We're having roast for our main course." The universal translators worked quickly to define roast. Flesh cooked with fire. Yellow nearly fell out of their chair. Blue's skin turned so pale it was almost transparent. Red began calculating the distance to the nearest exit. "But first," Smith said, "let's start with the soup. It's hot and ready." Servers appeared as if by magic, placing steaming bowls in front of everyone. The aliens watched in horror as the humans around them eagerly picked up their implements and began consuming the hot liquid. The steam rising from the bowls reminded them terrifyingly of cooking documentation they'd seen in their research. "Is the temperature okay for everyone?" Smith asked, looking particularly at the aliens. "We can make it hotter if you'd like." Gray managed a weak head shake, their translator unhelpfully providing multiple meanings for hot, including heated to high temperatures for cooking purposes. A human child at a nearby table pointed at them excitedly. "Mom, look. The alien skin keeps changing color. It's like a mood ring." "Don't point, dear," the mother said. "It's not polite to stare at our guests while we're having them for dinner." The translator sparked with that phrase again, "having them for dinner." Blue nearly fainted. Gray watched as more servers emerged from the kitchen doors, carrying larger covered platters now. The smell of cooked food filled the air, and the humans around them began showing more teeth in anticipation. One server removed a cover with a flourish, revealing what appeared to be some kind of prepared flesh, carefully arranged and glistening under the light. "Doesn't it look delicious?" Smith asked enthusiastically. "Wait until you see what else we've prepared for you." The word prepared echoed through their translators one too many times. Gray felt their last bit of diplomatic calm slipping away as they watched humans eagerly grabbing for the sharp implements, ready to tear into their food with obvious enthusiasm. All around them, humans were saying things like, "I'm starving," and "this looks good enough to eat," and "I can't wait to dig in." In that moment, watching the humans bare their teeth and brandish their metal tools, Gray realized they might have made a terrible mistake in accepting this dinner invitation. Gray tried to maintain their diplomatic composure as more food appeared at the table. Their universal translator worked overtime, providing increasingly disturbing definitions for each dish the servers announced. The aliens watched in silent horror as humans attacked their food with metal tools, tearing, cutting, and consuming with practiced efficiency. "Is everything all right, Ambassador?" Smith asked, noticing that none of the aliens had touched their soup. "Is the food not to your taste? We can bring something else from the kitchen." Before Gray could answer, a young human child wandered up to their table, clutching what appeared to be a picture book. The child looked at the aliens with wide eyes and smiled, showing tiny developing teeth. "You look funny," the child said, pointing at Blue. "Your skin is all sparkly, like the sprinkles on my birthday cake." The mother hurried over. "Tommy, that's not polite." She turned to the aliens with an apologetic smile. "I'm so sorry. He's just excited. We don't often have such special guests for dinner." The translator crackled. "Special guests for dinner." Blue's skin turned completely white. Red began trembling visibly. Yellow seemed frozen in place. The child, oblivious to their distress, continued cheerfully. "You look good enough to eat." That was the final straw. "Emergency protocol," Gray shouted in their native language, jumping up from the table. All around them, humans looked up from their meals in surprise, many with their cutting tools still in hand. Blue activated their emergency transmitter first, their form beginning to shimmer with transportation energy. Red and Yellow followed immediately after. The humans gasped as the aliens started disappearing one by one. "Ambassador Gray." Smith stood up, confused. "Is something wrong?" "Stay back," Gray warned, backing away from the table. "We understand now. We saw your preparation rooms, your cutting tools, your cooking fires." The room fell silent except for the clinking of dropped utensils. Humans stared in bewilderment as the alien delegation huddled together, their emergency transport devices humming to life. "You invite unsuspecting species to dinner," Gray continued, their voice rising with panic. "You prepare them with your chefs. You have them for dinner." Smith took a step forward, hands raised in a calming gesture. "Ambassador, I think there's been a misunderstanding." "Don't come any closer." Gray's skin flashed warning colors. "We've seen your nature documentaries. We know what predators do with their prey." More aliens began disappearing, their forms dissolving in shimmers of light. The remaining humans watched in stunned silence as their honored guests literally vanished before their eyes. But we made vegetarian options," Smith called out desperately. "We weren't sure what you could eat." The translator sparked one last time on the word eat, and Gray felt their last bit of diplomatic restraint snap. They quickly activated their own transport device. "The Galactic Council will hear of this," Gray declared as their form began to shimmer. "We'll warn them about your dinner invitations." Just before Gray disappeared completely, they saw Smith's confused face and all those gleaming metal implements on the tables. Their last thought before the transport beam took them was gratitude that they'd discovered the humans' true nature before it was too late. Back in the dining hall, hundreds of humans sat in bewildered silence. The soup grew cold in untouched bowls. The carefully prepared vegetarian roast sat steaming on its platter, completely forgotten. Director Smith slowly sank back into his chair, staring at the empty seats where their alien guests had been moments before. A server approached cautiously. Should we clear their plates, sir?" Smith put his head in his hands. "I don't understand," he muttered. Everything was going so well. What could have possibly gone wrong? In the corner, young Tommy looked up at his mother with innocent confusion. "Mom, why did the aliens leave? I just told them they looked good enough to eat." "That's a compliment, right?" The mother sighed, finally beginning to understand. "Oh dear," she said, looking at the empty chairs. "I think we might have a rather big cultural misunderstanding on our hands." The morning after the disastrous dinner, the United Earth Council chamber was filled with confused officials. Director Smith stood at the podium, facing dozens of bewildered faces. On the large screen behind him, a message from the alien ship blinked in bold letters. "Diplomatic Kionte Keet, Tiermanate, Danger Wadarn in Eng, Predatory Feeding Practate. Seas." "So let me get this straight," said one council member, rubbing his forehead. "They thought we were going to eat them." Smith nodded tiredly. He hadn't slept all night, trying to figure out where everything had gone wrong. Apparently, our dinner invitation was misinterpreted. The translation team just finished analyzing their emergency broadcast to the Galactic Council. The screen changed to show a series of images the aliens had transmitted. Pictures of human dining rooms labeled as preparation chambers, kitchen knives marked as flesh-cutting tools, and restaurants tagged as feeding grounds. "They've classified Earth as a high-risk planet," Smith continued, "with a warning about our—" What did they call it? Oh yes, our deceptively peaceful appearance masking predatory dining habits. In the back of the room, the head of the translation department stood up. "Sir, we found the problem." Their universal translators were taking our dining terminology literally, without cultural context. When we said we were having them for dinner, they thought we were going to eat them. Smith finished, shaking his head. "And all those cooking shows we broadcast into space probably didn't help." Another council member raised her hand. "What about the vegetarian options we prepared?" Surely they saw those. "They never got that far," Smith replied. "They disappeared right after Tommy Webster told them they looked good enough to eat." He couldn't help but smile slightly at the memory, despite the diplomatic disaster. On the main screen, more data from the alien broadcast scrolled past. They had apparently sent detailed warnings about human customs to every civilized world in their database. Earth was now famous across the galaxy, but not in the way they had hoped. "The good news," Smith said, trying to find a silver lining, "is that they don't seem to want to attack us. They just want to warn everyone to decline our dinner invitations." In the council chamber, someone started laughing. Soon, others joined in. The tension of the past day began to break as the absurdity of the situation sank in. So humanity's first contact with alien life ended because they thought our dinner party was actually a dinner party. Someone called from the back of the room. This brought another wave of laughter. Smith held up his hands for quiet. "The Galactic Council has sent us a formal message. They're willing to maintain communication, but only through long-distance channels, and they've attached a list of requirements." He pulled up the new message on the screen. The list was extensive. No more dinner invitations. All future meetings must be conducted in neutral spaces without eating implements. Human representatives must keep their teeth hidden when smiling. No use of the words preparation, cooking, or having someone over. They're also demanding we explain why we have special rooms in our homes dedicated to food preparation and why we teach our young to use cutting tools at an early age, Smith added. The council chamber erupted in another round of laughter. Even Smith had to smile. Humanity had dreamed of first contact for centuries, imagining all the ways it might go wrong. But nobody had ever predicted it would fail because of a dinner invitation. "So what do we do now?" someone asked. Smith looked at the final message from Ambassador Gray, which included a note that they would be adding a special warning label to Earth's entry in the galactic database. Approach with extreme caution, especially if invited to dine. Well, Smith said, straightening his tie, I suggest we start by revising our first contact protocols. Maybe next time we'll just offer them coffee. He paused, then added quickly, on second thought, maybe just water. We don't want them thinking we're trying to poison them. As the council chamber filled with more laughter, Smith couldn't help but wonder what other cultural misunderstandings might be waiting when they finally got another chance at first contact. At least they had learned one valuable lesson. In the future, they would be much more careful about their dinner invitations.